Hi everybody, this is Dan Stolbarger. Welcome to this week's KFIR Middle East Update. It's the week of August 21st. There may be some construction in the background, but nothing's going to keep this report from coming your way. So what's going on? Who would have thunk it? What a week, the week that was. We're going to cover Turkey, Hamas, assassinations, Fatah, the UAE, the Abrahamic Accord, and everything that's transpiring in between. So let's look at our news bites. Benjamin Netanyahu says that this deal with the United Arab Emirates, UAE, he believes will eventually lead to peace with the Palestinians, hailing normalization agreements. He says he's heard of many countries that will follow suit. We'll talk about the Saudis later in this report. But just as I finished that, across my screen from Israel came the words that the Sudanese foreign minister spokesperson Haider Badali Sadiq confirmed that his country, Sudan, is now in talks with Israel. On another note, Donald Trump is preparing to impose a new round of sanctions, not against Iran, but against Syria, designed to force the Assad regime into negotiations. And finally, you can file this under the category of I told you so. Despite the mounting evidence pointing to Hezbollah's possible role in the deadly August 4th Beirut Blast, the terror group continues now to promote the myth that it's all about Israel. The Jews did it. I told you, and it's going to increase. Well, let's talk a little bit more now. By the way, go to our website, holygroundexplorations.com, grab the PDF PowerPoint. There's photos, and I try to keep this report in that 10-minute range, and there's much more in the PDF that accompanies this. So let's talk a little bit, and you can get that on our website, free, holygroundexplorations.com. So let's talk about Turkey. What's going on with Turkey, and what about Hamas? The government of Turkey, President Erdogan, has kind of ratcheted up his relationship with Hamas. This last week, he's granted Turkey citizenship to 12 convicted Hamas terrorists that were freed in the Gilad Shalit deal. And all the terrorists have been considered active. They're working to raise funds for Hamas's activity and lead its operations. This move now allows them to travel freely. It enables them to plot terrorist activity against Israel across the globe. And according to the report, 7 of the 12 Hamas operatives used Turkey as their base operations. They're now Turkish citizens. They have passports. And so what's next? Well, a dicey subject of targeted assassinations. Israel is saying that they may resume targeted assassinations of top Hamas officials. According to a recent report, with everything that's transpiring, with this escalation and this really, it sounds trivial, but it's not, this balloon warfare that lights massive amounts of wildfires in southern Israel. Because of all of this and because of Turkey or whatever, that the whole concept of targeted assassinations is on the drawing board once again. And top targets for all of this, you see their photos in that PDF PowerPoint. Sinwar as well, who's kind of the military leader, and then Marwan Issa, who kind of controls the Qassam Brigade of Hamas's military wing. Can you imagine what will transpire? Again, no light matter. I'm hearing more and more rumblings that Gaza is about ready to break out into an all-out war due to these balloon devices that are just setting massive fires. Well, as we know, the big news of the week, of course, is this normalization between Israel and the United Arab Emirates. Now, where does Fatah fit into all this? Well, their quotes on their website basically says normalization is a crime and normalization is treason. And this is how they've responded to this historic peace agreement between Israel and the UAE. The Palestinian leaderships have once again clarified that this is equivalent to treason. Again, their concept is to continue the state of animosity between Israel and all of its neighbors in the Middle East, all other Muslim countries. And the Palestinian leadership, as you know, is not interested in making any kind of peace with Israel. And they expect other countries to ignore the benefits that they could reap from a peaceful, normalized relation. And the truth be told is many of these countries are just getting tired and weary of the Palestinians. And so we're going to continue to wait and see what transpires. You know, Trump, this major announcement, interesting term, it's called the Abrahamic Accord. And, not since Oslo and everything that transpired there has anything of this significance come to the front. Calling it the Abrahamic Accords or fellowships, we're seeing really a shift. And there are some that are saying, as far as Prophecy Watch goes, there are some that are saying, is this sort of a precursor? Is this the beginning of this sort of covenant of peace? We see an alignment, of course, with Turkey and Iran and Russia, and now some of these southern Muslim countries, the Saudis, United Arab Emirates, are kind of coming alongside of Israel. So we see this tension between really Israel and Iran and allies lining up on both sides, having really nothing to do with the Muslim Jewish quandrum. So we'll have to wait and see. Some of the pundits that I listen to are making the statement that they say Iran and Turkey are about ready to make a move. They can't wait much longer. They know as well as the rest of the world, if this shift gains momentum, they're going to be marginalized out of the way. So they say in coming months, we'll see more aggression from Gaza. We're already seeing that. We'll see a disintegration of security ties between the Palestinians and Israel. We're seeing that. They believe that Iran will move against some of the Gulf states, while Hezbollah will continue to ratchet up their animosity and actually attack in parts of Israel's north. Expect Turkey to attempt to seize control of some Greek islands in the East Med, while blocking the ability for Cyprus to gain access to some of the gas reserves that are under the sea. So a lot of things in play, all funneling back to this normalization. And again, with Trump being sort of the cog that's brought this together, where once again, you hate to use this phrase, but it fits at this particular time. These are interesting times in which we live. We'll have to wait and see. Week by week, things can dramatically change. Now, we mentioned some other countries that may come on board. There's an article here about Bahrain and Oman. They may be the next Gulf countries besides Sudan that want to normalize with Israel. And then right before I gave this report, or came on for this report, I read this article about the Saudis that U.S. President Donald Trump said on Wednesday that he expects Saudi Arabia to join the agreement announced last week by Israel and the United Arab Emirates to normalize diplomatic ties and to forge a broad new relationship. He says, I expect this to happen soon. And you've got the elections, you've got all of this posturing that is going back and forth. And so once again, we're going to have to see, because this agreement, this normalization kind of will firm up the opposition to the regional power of Iran. When you take Israel, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Oman, and as well as the Saudis, that's formidable. And so we'll have to, and you're probably tired of hearing me say this, going to have to wait and see. And I can see that I'm about out of time, so I'm going to let you read this end of days comment about this passage from Daniel that talks about the Antichrist firming up a covenant with many for 1 week. Check that out. And then this last week, I'll end with this. Brings tears to your eyes, and this concept of never again. Check out this picture. You have the Israeli Air Force along with the German Air Force doing a flyover of the death camp of Dachau, I should say, 75 years after its liberation. And the words of the Air Force chief, never again. Well, that's our report for this week. God bless you. Shalom. Remember, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. God bless.